Rich CEO noticed girl collecting leftovers from plates in restaurant, and stopped to ask, why? One night a CEO, tired after a long day at work, walked into a restaurant for dinner. His name was Ethan Hayes, known in business circles as a man who had everything: wealth, respect, and power. But that night, all he wanted was a quiet meal and a little peace. The restaurant was warm and calm, a sharp contrast to his restless thoughts. He chose a corner seat, ordered his food, and leaned back, hoping to relax. As he waited, something unusual caught his attention. At first, it was just a small movement at the edge of the dining room. Then he noticed clearly a young girl, no older than 8, carrying a cardboard box. She wasn't part of the staff. Her clothes were worn, her shoes old, and her little hands moved quickly, almost nervously. Ethan watched closely. The girl went from table to table, collecting food that customers had left behind. Half-eaten bread, untouched vegetables, a few pieces of meat. She carefully picked them up and placed them inside her box, as if every crumb mattered. It was a shocking sight. This was not the kind of scene anyone expected in a fine restaurant. Wealthy people dined, laughed, and raised glasses of wine around her. But no one seemed to notice the little figure moving quietly among them. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He had spent years making deals worth millions, yet here in front of him was a child gathering leftovers to survive. The contrast was too sharp to ignore. When the girl came near his table, Ethan leaned forward and spoke softly. "Hey," he said. "What are you doing?" The girl froze. For a moment she didn't move. Then she slowly turned toward him. Her big brown eyes filled with both fear and determination. She hugged the box to her chest like a shield. Ethan's voice softened even more. "Don't worry. I won't take it from you. I just want to know. Why are you collecting food like this?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "I need it." Ethan frowned gently. "Need it for what?" She lowered her gaze to the box. "For home." Those two simple words hit Ethan harder than any boardroom argument or financial loss ever had. For home. Not for herself alone, but for something beyond her. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Sit here for a minute," he said. The girl looked around, afraid someone might scold her. But nobody seemed to notice her presence at all. After a moment, she slid into the chair, still clutching the box tightly. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Lily," she answered softly. "Lily," Ethan repeated, as if memorizing it. "I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you." She gave a small nod, but her eyes stayed cautious. Ethan studied her quietly. She was thin, her cheeks slightly hollow. And her hands carried the marks of work a child her age should never have to do. And yet, in her eyes there was a spark. A quiet strength that refused to give up. He leaned closer. "Tell me the truth, Lily. Why are you really doing this?" For a moment she stayed silent, then finally whispered words that made his chest tighten. "My little brother is hungry." Ethan didn't respond right away. He sat back, his mind heavy with the weight of her answer. He had spent his entire career chasing success, money, houses, cars. He had more than enough. But across the table sat a girl whose only mission tonight was to collect scraps so her brother wouldn't go to sleep hungry. That night, Ethan realized his dinner would not be an ordinary one. Because his path had just crossed with Lily's. And nothing about his life was going to remain the same. Ethan Hayes stared at the little girl sitting across from him, her small hands clutching the cardboard box like it was treasure. Her words echoed in his mind. "My little brother is hungry." For a man who had dined in the finest restaurants, traveled the world in private jets, and signed billion-dollar deals, the statement was simple yet earth-shattering. Hunger wasn't part of his daily life. It was something he read about in reports or saw on charity ads. But tonight, it had a name, it had a face, it had Lily. He cleared his throat softly, trying not to overwhelm her. "How old is your brother?" "5. Lily answered quickly. Her voice steady though her eyes carried the weight of responsibility far beyond her years. "He's small, and sick sometimes. He needs food. I can't let him go to bed without something." Ethan leaned forward. "Where are your parents?" Lily lowered her head. For the first time, he saw the fragile side of her strength. "Mom, she's gone. Dad left before that. It's just me and him now." The words came out flat. Like she had repeated them to herself too many times already. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to ask more, but he could see that every detail was painful for her. The waiter arrived at that moment with Ethan's meal, placing a steaming plate of roasted chicken and vegetables in front of him. Ethan glanced at the food. Then back at Lily. He could see the way her eyes darted to the plate, then quickly away as though she didn't dare admit she wanted it. Without a word, Ethan slid the plate across the table. "Eat," he said gently. Lily's eyes widened. "But that's yours. I can order another," Ethan replied. "Go on." For a moment she hesitated, her pride fighting against her hunger. Then, slowly, she set the cardboard box on the seat beside her and pulled the plate closer. She picked up the fork and began eating in small, careful bites. Ethan watched quietly. Every bite she took seemed to carry relief, but also sadness. Like she wasn't eating just for herself but for the brother waiting at home. "You take care of him all by yourself?" Ethan asked after a while. Lily nodded between bites. "I have to. He's little. He cries when there's no food. I don't like when he cries." Her words hit him harder than any financial report or critical investor ever had. She was a child, yet speaking with the resolve of an adult. "Where do you live?" he asked gently. "Not far," Lily said carefully, though her eyes stayed wary, as if unsure if she should trust him with details. "A small place, just one room." Ethan nodded slowly, not pressing further. He didn't want to scare her away with too many questions. Instead, he leaned back, letting silence fill the space for a moment. Lily finished half the plate before stopping. She pushed the rest toward him. "I should save this for him," she said softly. Ethan looked at her in disbelief. She hadn't had enough for herself, yet she was already thinking of her brother. He pushed the plate back to her. "Eat more. I'll have something packed for him too. Don't worry." Her eyes lit up, a flicker of hope breaking through the guarded walls she had built around herself. "Really? Really?" Ethan confirmed. For the first time that night, Lily smiled. It wasn't wide or carefree like most children's smiles. But it was real. And it pierced through Ethan's heart like nothing else had. The waiter returned, and Ethan quietly ordered another meal to be packed, to go. He didn't explain why. He didn't need to. As Lily ate, Ethan studied her carefully. He thought of the luxury cars waiting in his garage, the massive penthouse apartment where silence echoed through empty rooms, and the endless list of meetings that filled his calendar. He had everything money could buy. Yet none of it gave him the warmth he felt now. Watching a child eat dinner across from him. When she finally set down the fork, she whispered, "Thank you." "You're welcome," Ethan replied softly. Then he added, "Lily, has anyone ever tried to help you? A neighbor, maybe a teacher?" Lily shook her head. "People don't see us. Sometimes they give old bread, but mostly it's just me. I go out, find food, bring it back. That's how it is." Ethan's jaw tightened. The idea of an 8-year-old carrying the burden of survival, while the world went on ignoring her, was unbearable. He wanted to say something comforting. But before he could, the waiter returned with a neatly packed bag. Ethan slid it across to Lily. "This is for your brother." Her hands trembled slightly as she took it, holding it like it was the most valuable gift she had ever received. "He's going to be so happy," she said with a soft laugh, her eyes shining. Ethan nodded, though inside he felt a storm brewing. He couldn't just let her walk out of the restaurant with a box of scraps and a single packed meal. Not now. Not after hearing her story. But he knew he couldn't overwhelm her either. Trust would take time. As Lily stood to leave, clutching the bag and her cardboard box, Ethan spoke again. "Lily." She paused, looking at him. He leaned forward slightly. "Tomorrow, if you come here at this time, I'll have food for you and your brother. Fresh food. Not leftovers." Lily's eyes widened. "You do that?" "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "But only if you promise to come back." For a long moment, Lily just stared at him, her small face caught between hope and disbelief. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay." With that, she turned and walked toward the door, her tiny figure almost swallowed by the large restaurant. Ethan sat back, his untouched glass of wine in front of him. He had no appetite left. His mind was consumed by Lily's words, her strength, and the heavy truth she carried. That night, as he drove home to his silent penthouse, Ethan realized something had changed. For the first time in years, His thoughts weren't about profits or deals. They were about a little girl named Lily, and the promise he had just made. And deep down, he knew keeping that promise might change not only her life, but his own. The night was long for Ethan. He lay in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His bed was large, his sheets soft. The view from his window breathtaking, but none of it mattered. All he could see in his mind was Lily's thin face, her trembling hands clutching a box of leftovers, and the way her eyes lit up when he promised her food. He had made countless promises in his business life, often to shareholders or partners. But this one felt different. It carried weight in his chest. It was personal. By morning, his routine felt unfamiliar. Normally, his assistant would hand him a schedule packed with meetings, calls, and decisions worth millions. Today, he looked at the paper and saw nothing but noise. He circled one line in his mind instead: meet Lily at the restaurant. The hours crawled. Ethan sat in meetings, but his thoughts drifted elsewhere. A question nagged at him: how many other children were out there like Lily, invisible in plain sight? He had built an empire, yet never truly looked at the world beyond his office windows. That evening, as promised, he returned to the restaurant. He chose the same corner table, his heart beating faster than he expected. Would she come? Or had she assumed his words were empty, like so many adults' promises before? The waiter brought him water, and Ethan ordered 2 meals to start. He didn't explain why. He just waited. Minutes passed. Then, just as doubt began to creep in, the door opened. Lily walked in, clutching her cardboard box. She looked around carefully, as though unsure if she should really be there. When her eyes met his, Ethan gave a small wave. Relief washed over her face, and she approached the table. "You came," Ethan said warmly. "You really meant it?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from him. "I meant every word," he replied. The waiter soon brought out the meals, fresh, hot plates of chicken, rice, and vegetables. Ethan pushed one toward her. "This one's for you. The other will be packed for your brother." Lily's face brightened instantly. She picked up the fork and began eating, faster this time, less hesitant than before. It was clear she had spent the day with little or nothing to eat. As she ate, Ethan asked gently, "What's your brother's name?" "Sam," she said with a small smile. "He's 5. He likes stories. Sometimes when he's hungry, I tell him stories to make him forget." Ethan's throat tightened. "Stories instead of food," he murmured. "You're stronger than you realize." "Lily," she shrugged, chewing quickly. "I just have to keep him safe." Ethan studied her. "What about school? Do you go?" Her fork slowed. She shook her head. "Not anymore. After Mom, I had to stay with Sam. If I leave, who will watch him? Who will give him food?" The simplicity of her words carried a weight that cut deep. Childhood had been stolen from her, replaced by survival. When she finished, Ethan made sure the second meal was carefully packed. Lily held it tightly, her eyes filled with gratitude. "He's going to be so happy," she whispered. "Lily," Ethan said gently, "do you have anyone? An aunt, a relative, someone who checks on you?" She shook her head. "No one. Just me and Sam." Ethan sat back silent for a moment. He could feel the businessman in him trying to analyze, to calculate solutions like he always did. But this wasn't a deal to close. This was a child's life. He leaned forward again. "Would you let me see where you live? I want to understand. I won't come inside if you don't want me to, but maybe I can help." Lily looked hesitant. Trust wasn't easy for her. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. The question hit him. Why did he care? He thought of the endless nights spent alone in his penthouse, the emptiness that all the wealth in the world couldn't fill. Then he thought of her, a girl carrying the weight of a family on shoulders too small. "Because no child should live like this," he said firmly. "And because I made you a promise." Lily studied him for a long moment, as if measuring the truth in his words. Finally she nodded. "Okay. But just outside. I don't want Sam to be scared." "Of course." Ethan agreed. They left the restaurant together, stepping into the cool night air. The contrast struck Ethan immediately. The glowing city lights, expensive cars parked along the street, and just a few blocks away, Lily led him through darker, quieter roads where luxury disappeared. They walked until she stopped in front of a small, run-down building. Its paint was peeling, windows cracked, and the stairway looked unsafe. Lily pointed toward the second floor. That's us. Ethan swallowed hard. He stayed on the sidewalk, just as she asked. And Sam is up there now. Yes, he's waiting. Lily clutched the food bag tighter. I have to go. He nodded, respecting her boundaries. Go take care of him. I'll be here tomorrow. At the same place. Lily gave him one last look, cautious but with a flicker of trust, then hurried up the stairs. Ethan watched until she disappeared inside. He stood there for a long time, staring at the crumbling building. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Not in business, but as a man facing the harsh reality of a child's struggle. When he finally returned to his car, he sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. His reflection in the rearview mirror stared back at him. The polished CEO, perfectly dressed, but with eyes that suddenly saw the world differently. He thought of Lily's words. Why do you care? And the truth echoed inside him. Because he had been blind for too long. That night, Ethan Hayes made a silent vow. He wouldn't just feed her tomorrow. He wouldn't stop at a single meal or a passing act of kindness. He was going to change something. Something bigger than himself. But for now, it began with Lily and Sam. 2 children the world had ignored. 2 lives that had crossed his path by chance, or maybe by fate. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he couldn't buy with money. The next morning, Ethan sat at his office desk, staring at a stack of papers that suddenly felt meaningless. His assistant buzzed in, reminding him about 3 important meetings scheduled back to back. Normally, he would have been energized, ready to dominate the room with sharp decisions and strong numbers. But today, none of it mattered. His thoughts weren't on market trends or quarterly reports. They were on Lily and Sam. 2 children living in a crumbling building. Invisible to a city obsessed with wealth and power. Ethan closed the folder in front of him. Cancel my meetings. He told his assistant through the intercom. There was silence. Then a cautious reply, all of them, sir. Yes, Ethan said firmly. All of them. It was the first time in years he had pushed business aside. But something in him knew this wasn't about charity or a passing act of kindness. This was about responsibility, about using the life he had been given to impact someone else's. By evening, Ethan returned to the restaurant. He chose the same corner seat, his eyes on the door. He didn't know if Lily would come back. Part of him feared she might have decided not to trust him again. But right at the hour they agreed upon, the door opened and Lily walked in, carrying her cardboard box. This time, her steps were quicker. Her eyes searching until they found him. You came back, Ethan said, standing slightly. You did too, Lily replied, her voice softer than last night. They sat together, and once again, Ethan ordered meals, one for her, one for Sam. As she ate, Ethan leaned forward. Lily, I want to ask you something important. And I want you to be honest with me. She looked at him cautiously. What? Do you want a different life? He asked. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. She set it down slowly, her eyes searching his face. What do you mean? I mean, do you want to go back to school? To live somewhere safe? Where you and Sam don't have to worry about food every day? For a moment, Lily didn't speak. Her small hands fidgeted with the edge of the napkin. That sounds nice, she admitted quietly. But things like that don't happen to people like us. Ethan's heart tightened. Why not? Because no one cares that much, she said simply. He leaned forward, his voice steady. I care. Lily studied him for a long time, her guarded walls fighting against the hope rising inside her. Finally, she whispered. If I say yes, what happens to Sam? I won't leave him. You'll never have to. Ethan said firmly. Where you go he goes. Always. Something in his tone seemed to convince her. She nodded slowly though her eyes were still filled with doubt. Good, Ethan said. Then let me help. She hesitated again. Why? It was the same question she had asked before, but this time Ethan answered differently. Because I've been given more than I need. He said quietly. And I see now that keeping it all to myself means nothing. But using it to help you. That means everything. Lily lowered her gaze, hiding the small smile that tugged at her lips. After dinner Ethan asked, can I meet Sam? Lily stiffened. He doesn't know you. He might be scared. I understand, Ethan said. Maybe just for a moment. If he sees me and sees you're safe with me, maybe it'll be easier. She thought for a while, then nodded. Okay. But only for a little bit. Together, they walked the same path as the night before. Through streets that grew darker and rougher the further they went. Ethan felt the weight of every step. His polished shoes hitting pavement that had been ignored by city officials for years. When they reached the building, Lily hurried upstairs, carrying the food with her. Ethan waited outside, just as he had promised. After a few minutes, she reappeared, a small boy peeking out from behind her. Sam was tiny, his face pale. His hair unkempt. His eyes were wide and wary as they landed on Ethan. He clung to Lily's side like a shadow. "This is Sam," Lily said softly. Ethan crouched slightly, lowering himself to the boy's level. "Sam. I'm Ethan." Sam didn't answer. He just looked at his sister, silently asking if it was okay. Lily gave him a small nod. "He brought us food yesterday. And today too." Sam's eyes softened a little, though he stayed quiet. Ethan smiled gently. "I'm glad I got to meet you." He didn't push further. He knew trust would take time. After a moment, Lily whispered, "We should go inside now. It's late." Ethan nodded. "Of course. I'll see you both tomorrow." As they disappeared into the building, Ethan stood on the sidewalk, his mind racing. He couldn't just let this continue. 2 children living alone, struggling every day. Something had to change. That night, back in his penthouse, Ethan opened his laptop. But instead of business reports, he began searching for child support services, shelters, and private programs. He had the power to give Lily and Sam a chance. But he knew he had to do it carefully, without breaking the fragile trust they had placed in him. He drafted plans, made calls, and by dawn, he had already lined up connections. A private tutor for Lily, a doctor's appointment for Sam, and, most importantly, the beginning of a safe home where they wouldn't go hungry again. But he knew one thing, he couldn't tell them all of this at once. They weren't ready. Trust had to be earned, piece by piece. The next evening, Ethan returned to the restaurant. He wasn't just waiting for Lily anymore. He was waiting for the moment she would finally believe him. Not just as a stranger with money, but as someone who truly cared. And deep down, Ethan knew his own life was changing just as much as theirs. The following evening, Ethan arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual. He didn't want Lily to wait. And if he was honest, he didn't want to wait either. Something about seeing her and Sam had stirred a sense of responsibility in him that no business venture ever had. He chose the same corner seat and asked the waiter to prepare 3 meals right away. 2 for the children and 1 for himself. When the waiter gave him a curious look, Ethan simply said, "They're for friends of mine." By the time Lily walked in, carrying her familiar cardboard box, the food was already on the table. She spotted him quickly, and this time her steps carried a little less hesitation. "You're early," she said as she sat down. "So are you?" Ethan replied with a small smile. The waiter placed a meal in front of her, and Ethan pointed to the other box on the table. "That one's for Sam." Lily's eyes widened, her lips parting slightly in surprise. "You remembered?" "Of course," Ethan said. "How could I forget?" She smiled faintly, then began eating with the same careful bites as before. Ethan noticed how she always paused after a few mouthfuls, as though calculating how much to save. "Eat what you need," he encouraged. "There's more if you're still hungry." She nodded, though the habit of restraint was hard to shake. As she ate, Ethan tried to ease into conversation. "How's Sam today?" He smiled. Lily said softly, her eyes brightening. "When I gave him the food last night, he smiled the whole time he ate." I hadn't seen him smile like that in weeks. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. "That's good. He deserves to smile every day." They ate quietly for a while. Then, when the plates were nearly empty, Ethan leaned forward. "Lily, I want to help more than just giving you food at night. Would you let me?" Her fork froze, and she looked at him carefully. "Help how?" "First," Ethan said, choosing his words gently, "I'd like Sam to see a doctor. He looks small for his age. And I want to make sure he's healthy. I'll pay for everything. You won't have to worry about money." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Why would you do that for us?" "Because I can," Ethan answered honestly. "And because I want to." She stayed quiet, her fingers tracing the rim of the plate. Trust didn't come easy for her, Ethan knew that. "I'll be there the whole time," he added softly. "You won't be alone." Lily thought for a long moment, then finally gave a small nod. "Okay. But only if Sam wants to." "That's fair," Ethan said with a smile. "We'll ask him." When they finished dinner, Ethan walked her back to the small building again. Sam was waiting at the window, his tiny face pressed against the glass as Lily came up the stairs. She waved to him, then looked back at Ethan. "Tomorrow," she said. "We'll ask him tomorrow." Ethan nodded. "I'll be here." The next day, Ethan cleared his schedule completely. For the first time in years, he told his assistant, no calls, no meetings, no interruptions. The assistant was stunned. But Ethan didn't explain. Some things were beyond explanation. That evening, he met Lily and Sam outside the building. Lily was holding her brother's hand tightly. Sam clung to her side, his wide eyes cautious as he looked up at Ethan. "Hi Sam," Ethan said warmly. "Do you remember me?" The boy nodded slowly. Ethan crouched down to his level. "Lily told me you weren't feeling very strong. Would you let me take you to a doctor? Just to make sure you're okay. Nothing scary, I promise." As Sam looked up at his sister, silently asking for guidance. "It's okay," Lily said gently. "He's helping us." Sam hesitated, then gave a small nod. Ethan smiled. "Good, we'll go together." At the clinic, the doctor examined Sam carefully. Ethan sat nearby, watching every detail, while Lily stayed right by her brother's side, holding his hand. After the checkup, the doctor explained that Sam was underweight, likely from malnutrition. But otherwise he seemed healthy. With regular meals, vitamins, and rest, he would recover quickly. Lily exhaled in relief, hugging her brother tightly. Ethan felt his chest loosen as well. The doctor handed Ethan a prescription and a list of nutritional foods. Ethan took it, determined to follow through. On the ride back, Lily whispered, "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Ethan said. "This is just the beginning." Her eyes flickered toward him. Cautious but curious. "The beginning of what?" "The beginning of a different life," he answered softly. That night, Ethan didn't return to his penthouse right away. Instead, he stopped at a grocery store and filled bags with food, fruits, vegetables, milk, bread, and enough to last Lily and Sam for days. When he brought the bags to their building, Lily's eyes went wide. "This is for us." "Yes," Ethan said simply. "For you and Sam. Fresh food. No more leftovers." She stood frozen for a moment, then whispered again. "Why do you care so much?" Ethan crouched down so his eyes were level with hers. "Because I see you. I see how strong you are, how much you love your brother. And I know you shouldn't have to do it alone. Let me stand with you, Lily." Her lips trembled, and for the first time, her eyes filled with tears. She blinked them away quickly, not wanting to show weakness. But Ethan saw them. That night, as he left the building, he knew trust was slowly being built, brick by brick, meal by meal. And deep inside, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. Over the next few days, Ethan's routine changed completely. He was still the CEO of a powerful company, but every evening now ended at the little restaurant, where Lily and Sam waited. It had become their unspoken meeting place, safe, predictable, and warm. The first night after the grocery delivery, Lily showed up with Sam, who carried a small backpack. When they sat down, Ethan noticed something different. Sam's eyes weren't as hollow. He even looked at the menu, curious. "You can pick anything you like," Ethan said with a smile. Sam glanced at his sister, and when she nodded, he pointed shyly at the pasta. "Good choice," Ethan said. It was a small moment, but to Ethan it felt monumental. The boy was beginning to trust. Later that evening, when the plates were cleared, Ethan leaned forward. "How's the food at home? Enough for both of you?" "Yes," Lily replied softly. Sam ate breakfast 2 days in a row. He hasn't done that in months. Sam grinned at his sister's words, and Ethan caught the faintest glimpse of dimples. "That makes me happy," Ethan said. "We'll keep it that way." But then he asked gently, "What about school, Lily? Do you want to go back?" But she froze, her smile fading. "I can't. If I go to school, who takes care of Sam?" Ethan had expected that answer. What if there was someone to help? A tutor who comes to you, or a safe program where Sam can stay during the day? Lily shook her head, eyes filled with doubt. People don't just show up and offer things like that. They always want something back. Her words cut into Ethan like a blade. It wasn't cynicism. It was experience. She had learned early that help always came with a price. Ethan leaned forward, lowering his voice. I don't want anything back. I don't need anything from you. I just want to see you both safe. She searched his face for signs of dishonesty. After a long pause she whispered. If you're lying, I'll never forgive you. I'm not lying, Ethan said firmly. The next day. Ethan brought a tutor he trusted. A kind woman named Sarah, who had taught children in shelters before. He introduced her to Lily at the restaurant. Lily. This is Sarah. She's not here to judge you. She's just here to help with schoolwork if you want it. Lily eyed Sarah cautiously. Do you get paid for this? Sarah smiled gently. Not by you. Ethan takes care of that. All you have to do is learn. Still unsure, Lily crossed her arms. And if I don't want to? Then I'll leave. Sarah said kindly. It's your choice. That answer seemed to soften Lily a little. She didn't agree right away, but she didn't reject the idea either. Ethan let the moment rest. He knew forcing her would only push her away. That evening. Ethan drove them back to their building. As he parked on the street, a voice called out from a nearby doorway. Lily! Sam! A woman stepped out. A neighbor. Thin and tired looking, with sharp eyes that scanned Ethan suspiciously. Who's this? She demanded, nodding toward him. Lily stiffened. He's a friend. The woman snorted. Rich men don't come around here to be friends. Be careful, Lily. Ethan stayed quiet. But her words echoed in his mind. This was the world Lily grew up in. One where trust was dangerous, and kindness often came with hidden motives. When they went upstairs, Ethan noticed Lily's shoulders hunched slightly, as though bracing for criticism. Inside their apartment, Sam dropped his backpack and pulled out a small drawing. He handed it shyly to Ethan. It was a rough sketch, drawn with a broken pencil on scrap paper. But Ethan recognized it instantly. It was him, sitting at the restaurant table, with Lily and Sam across from him. You drew this? Ethan asked softly. Sam nodded, his eyes bright. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wasn't just a stranger anymore. In Sam's eyes, he was part of their story. Thank you, Ethan said, carefully folding the drawing and placing it in his jacket pocket. I'll keep it safe. Over the following week, small changes began to show. Sam's cheeks grew rounder. Lily started to laugh, quietly but real. Sarah visited twice, and though Lily kept her guard up, she listened. But with progress came new challenges. One evening, after dinner, Ethan received a call from his assistant. Sir, the board is asking questions. You've been missing meetings, skipping events. Investors are getting nervous. Ethan sighed. Handle it for now. Sir. The assistant pressed. This is serious. Your absence is being noticed. People are beginning to wonder what's more important than your company. Ethan hung up without answering. He already knew the truth for the first time in his life. Something was more important. But he also knew that his two worlds couldn't stay separate forever. That night as he walked Lily and Sam back, Lily suddenly asked, Why do you keep coming back? Ethan paused. Because I want to. That's not an answer. She said sharply. You're rich. You have cars and suits, and people who listen to you. Why waste your time here? Ethan stopped walking. He crouched slightly so his eyes met hers. Because none of those things matter if I can't use them to help someone. And because when I see you and Sam, I see what really matters. Lily stared at him. Her expression torn between disbelief and hope. Finally she looked away, whispering, I don't want to need anyone. Needing people hurts. I understand, Ethan said gently. But maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to hurt this time. She didn't answer. But when they reached the apartment, she didn't say goodbye quickly as usual. She lingered for a moment, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. As the door closed, Ethan realized what it was, the first fragile hint of trust. Ethan sat in his office, the city skyline glittering through the wide windows. In front of him, a dozen files waited for his signature, but his mind was far away. Every night for the last 2 weeks, He had eaten dinner not with investors or business partners, but with Lily and Sam. Every night, he had seen the fragile hope growing in their eyes. But today, a storm was brewing. His assistant stepped in, looking uneasy. "Sir, the board is restless. They've scheduled an emergency meeting. They're demanding answers." Ethan stood slowly. "Then they'll get them." The boardroom was filled with polished suits and impatient voices. As Ethan entered, all eyes turned toward him. "Ethan," one of the directors said sharply, "we've tolerated your absences, but this is beyond reason. You're missing key opportunities, avoiding investors. Where have you been?" Another added, "This company doesn't run itself. If you can't commit fully, maybe you shouldn't be in that chair." Ethan looked around the room, then placed his hands on the table. His voice was calm, steady. "You're right," he said. "I haven't been here as much. Because I've realized something all of this." He gestured to the charts, the contracts. "The luxury around them means nothing if it doesn't serve a greater purpose." The directors exchanged baffled looks. "I've spent my life chasing numbers and power," Ethan continued. "But out there, beyond this glass tower, are people who don't even know where their next meal will come from. I've met them. I've seen them. And I can't unsee it." One director scoffed. "Charity is fine, Ethan, but don't confuse it with business." "No," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not confusing it, I'm redefining it. This company will not just be about profit anymore. It will be about impact. And if anyone has a problem with that." He leaned forward, eyes sharp. "There's the door." The room fell silent. Some looked shocked, others furious. But Ethan didn't care. For the first time, he felt like he was finally leading for the right reasons. That evening he returned to the restaurant. Lily and Sam were waiting as always. But this time, Ethan looked at them with new determination. "I made a decision today," he said as they ate. Lily tilted her head. "What kind of decision?" "The kind that changes everything," Ethan replied. "From now on, I'm not just helping you. I'm helping kids like you all over this city. Food, shelter, education, it's going to happen." Lily's eyes widened, but then narrowed with doubt. "People always make promises they don't keep." Ethan reached across the table, his voice steady. "Then watch me keep this one." For the first time, Sam spoke in more than a whisper. His small voice carried across the table. "Does that mean we're safe now?" Ethan's chest tightened. He nodded. "Yes, Sam. You're safe now." The boy smiled, and Lily's lips trembled as she tried to hold back tears. For children who had lived in shadows, the promise of safety was more powerful than anything else. Days turned into weeks, and change began. Sarah, the tutor, came regularly. Sam gained weight and color in his cheeks. Lily slowly opened up, asking questions about math, then reading, then the world beyond her small apartment. But the biggest change was inside Ethan. He no longer rushed through his days chasing profits. He still ran his company, but with new purpose. Allocating funds to programs for children, launching initiatives for shelters. Ensuring no child in his city would have to dig through restaurant scraps ever again. The board resisted at first, but soon the media caught wind of his efforts. CEO turns wealth into lifeline for city's children. The headlines read. Public support grew. And even skeptical investors saw the value in aligning with a company that had heart as well as power. Yet none of that mattered to Ethan as much as the quiet moments. Lily laughing at one of Sam's jokes, Sam handing him another drawing, Lily whispering, "I believe you now." One evening, months later, Ethan sat at the restaurant table as usual. Lily and Sam were with him, their faces brighter, their futures no longer clouded by hunger or fear. Lily looked at him seriously. "You changed everything." Ethan shook his head. "No, Lily, you did. You had the courage to survive when everything was against you." "All I did was notice." She smiled, a real smile this time, free of doubt. "Then I'm glad you noticed." And for Ethan, those words were more valuable than all the wealth he had ever built. If you enjoyed this story. Rich CEO noticed girl collecting leftovers from plates in restaurant, and stopped to ask why. Make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends. I'd love to hear from you. What did you feel while reading Lily and Sam's journey? Have you ever experienced something that changed the way you see the world? The way it changed Ethan. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else too. Thank you so much for giving your precious time to this story. Stay connected for more inspiring stories.